row. Who's next? We'll chat about that as well with Enda McGinley and Barry Cahill from 7:30. For all the dubs out there, text us in your favourite Jim Gavin memories. As long as they're not either of the All-Ireland finals where they beat Mayo, that is totally off limits.
What's your favourite?
3 hours.
What's your favourite Jim Gavin memory, Nathan?
Saturday when the email came in to say, yes, finally, he's going to put us all out of our misery and maybe the rest of us have a chance, Ronan.
I think Owen Sheehan tweeted the O'Byrne Cup has been blown wide open. I think that's pretty much where we're at. I think Dublin will have enough muscle memory from Jim to see them through.
Ronan Mullen is here. How are you?
All good.
Amory Donelan is here.
Hello.
Dan MacDonald was meant to be here, but I'm hearing rumours he has just been appointed as the latest interim CEO of the FAI. Quite possibly. We're going to chat about that and the latest news that the John Foley, who was meant to be starting work today, decided when he got in, actually, not for me, I'm out of here. So they're looking for another interim CEO. We'll talk about that on the football show. Dan was in Bucharest as well for the draw for Euro 2020, which we may or may not be at. Either way, we're going to have the game of the tournament in the last 16 in Dublin. Either England or Croatia against either Germany or France or Portugal. It's going to be spectacular.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter which way it goes. It's going to be a cracking final, or cracking fixture. So, looking forward to it.
So we'll talk about that on the football show. We'll hear from Stephen Doyle and David Myler as well, who were over at the Premier League yesterday. A lot to chat about there. And after 8 o'clock, we will have Monday Night Rugby. I thought it was Wednesday. Monday Night Rugby with Keith Wood and Rory O'Connor. So 53106 is the text number, at Off the Ball on Twitter. But really, the main talking point is going to be about Jim Gavin and the timing as much as anything else, because the longer it dragged on. Remember, Jim Gavin famously said after they won All Ireland, we're several months behind other counties in our preparation. They've got a head start on us. And now we're, what? Are we 3 months on from the All Ireland?
Yeah, I was very much of the opinion, as the final was approaching, that if they got over the line in his post-match press conference, he might just say, that's me, a separate point. But I think he will be back in this role at some point in the future. I'd be surprised if he wasn't, but I can understand the pressures on that role as compared to even other inter-county managers, the media obligations, or even trying to navigate around.
There's no media obligations. He doesn't do any media obligations.
Trying to navigate around that fact, even the people want to basically hear him all the time. And ironically, I saw him, I think it was on the news last week, talking in a different capacity.
About drones.
Yeah, about drones.
Yeah, and I was like,
I haven't seen Jim Gavin in a while, and he pops up about drones, and then it's the following day.
Yeah, and there was a throwaway question about what are the plans for Dublin going forward, and he gave the token response, and then within hours he's gone. So that's Jim Gavin in a nutshell.
I think he's dead right, though. 5 in a row was the watermark. He hit it. Everything else is just 6 in a row, 7 in a row. Doesn't really matter.
Why didn't he go straight away? Do you think he thought he'd stay on and change his mind?
I think there may have been a slight change in his personal circumstances. Joe Brody was on Saturday talking about maybe a role that would involve him being in Brussels quite a lot. So maybe something happened like that he decided, actually, you know what, I just can't give the full commitment to this. Everything we've heard is that it was an absolute shock to everybody. That all the players, all the county board officials, they were not expecting this before the weekend, which sort of puts pay to the expectation that the Dublin County Board would have had the successor lined up, that they've known about this for several weeks, and actually it'll be just a pretty clean handover. That maybe, just maybe, these may be the cracks.
I just wonder how seamless Jim wants this transition to be, because all the talk has been that...
Are you saying he doesn't want them to win 6 in a row?
They've all these resources at their fingertips, and everyone throws out the line. Anyone could manage this team.
Right.
But then if someone comes in and just continues this 6, 7, 8, Jim Gavin, maybe his legacy isn't quite on the mantle it is at the moment.
He is definitely the greatest.
Oh, for sure.
Of all time.
I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit, but yeah, he's definitely.
You don't think so?
Definitely.
Oh.
No, I'm playing devil's advocate by saying he might not be, but I think his body of work speaks for itself.
Dan MacDonald has joined us.
I've just walked in, yeah.
I'm not often here on a Monday, and it always seems to run pretty smoothly. But
I see your point.
So what's your excuse? Where were you?
Well, I was just about to actually...
I was making the point that maybe you're the new interim CEO of the FAI.
Maybe Jim Gavin is.
Wow.
There's your suggestion.
Do you think Jim Gavin, for all his brilliant traits, could turn the FAI around in a short period of time?
I don't know enough about Jim Gavin per se, but I mean, it seems like for a press conference he would just get everyone... He'd have an understated but sort of calm authority that maybe that the FAI have lacked.
Unlikely to buy the drinks on the train to an away match.
Unlikely to run the trip. Yeah, certain aspects of the personality the fact that the FAI CEO role has a sort of a personality aspect to it, you might struggle with that part of it. But no, I'm sorry for just being slightly late, but Minister Shane Ross, another great figure in Irish public life, released a statement quite late in the day to do with the latest FAI matters of today.
All right, we'll get back to
holding up
Dublin.
the show. Go back to Dublin.
No, we'll get back to Dublin. Anne-Marie, talk us through what's going on in the FAI.
Yeah, that's where we'll start, Nathan. The FAI have said that they note with great regret the decision of John Foley to back down from his new role as interim CEO. It was confirmed today that the former Athletics Ireland chief executive will not be taking up the role, which he was due to start today. Foley had previously agreed to replace Noel Mooney as the FAI's interim chief. In a statement, they said his experience and influence will be missed, adding that the board will meet to discuss their next step. And as Dan said, the Minister for Sport, Shane Ross, has released a statement late on this evening saying that they feel the new FAI CEO should be completely independent of any present or previous involvement with the FAI. And they've said in that statement that the most important task at hand for the FAI should be the appointment of 4 independent directors. Thereafter, it is important that the board, under the leadership of the independent chairperson, moves quickly to fill the CEO vacancy. To satisfy the concerns of all stakeholders, the new CEO should be completely independent of any present or previous involvement with the FAI.
This statement from Shane Ross is particularly interesting because John Foley, in his statement, said he felt he didn't have the support from key stakeholders. It seems clear from that statement from Shane Ross that he was one of those who wasn't giving his full support because of John Foley's previous connections with the FAI and with John Delaney.
Yeah, you could definitely take that reading from it. I think John Foley's prospective appointment probably posed problems under a number of areas. Like, he was, I mean, if Noel Mooney was to be sort of tackled on previous links with the FAI, I mean, John Foley was on the National League Executive Committee for 12 years, an ineffective body that had to be reformed and reshaped early this year after John Delaney left. I think if John Foley had turned up at a press conference on his first day, well, today was meant to be his first day, but he turned up as interim CEO, he would have faced a lot of questions about his past links. So, but yeah, from the Shane Ross statement, it certainly would imply, or certainly you could take the meaning from it, that they were amongst the sceptics. Now, what the Shane Ross statement says, though, is that it's actually saying that finding an interim CEO was actually secondary to finding the 4 independent directors who will appoint a permanent
Why
CEO.
hasn't that happened yet? Because I think back at the beginning of October there was an expectation it would be announced within a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and I think and a couple of us would have spoken to Noel Mooney in Bucharest over the weekend about that specific point on Friday. And I think that the steps in the process were that the COSI audit would be completed, maybe published, or certainly completed anyway, and then the independent directors would come in. But Noel Mooney said on Friday that because this COSI report had now gone to the guards and as a result is sort of caught in a strange sort of limbo, there was a feeling that the appointment of the independent directors has now been caught up in the same process. Now, I mean, Shane Ross, again, I mean, he's riding a fine line with a lot of these statements.
Well, that's why I thought this was particularly interesting, because the UEFA and FIFA not have pretty strict rules about government interference.
Well, they would, yeah, and that's a strong line. I mean, really, if previous involvement or previous links or previous statements about the FAI precluded you from involvement in this process, then Shane Ross should probably absent himself from the process too, given that some of his comments about the FAI over the years would have been very supportive of people, and he nearly would have dismissed criticism of the FAI until it became a vehicle for pretty cheap point scoring. So I think that point must be acknowledged. However, once once the government have suspended funding to the FAI, they hold a pretty strong card, and that card is one that they can use to a degree. But you are right. I mean, he's flirting with the political interference, telling the FAI who their next CEO should be, or what genre the next CEO should come from. While it may be correct that the next guy or girl should have no link with the previous FAI administration.
Where does that end?
Where do you stop? Like, have you met them?
Have you been to a match?
Well, I think if you've worked for them, I think there's an argument that if you have worked for them or sat in their committees or if you've been seen in any way to prop up or support the administration that was there over 15 years, I can see why that's problematic. I think that that's something that people who are making the appointment should strongly look at, but I don't know if it should be a diktat that's laid down by outside from a government figure. You know, there's sort of a, you know, you may think it, but you may not say it, if you know what I mean. That it actually becomes a criteria for application. I would imagine that it would have to come from, that the next appointment would have to come, you know, it would have to be someone with no link. However, I'm not sure about saying it, defining it clearly, from minister to define it clearly, is that actually proper?
The practicalities of what the interim CEO would do. So John Foley, it seems, was in Abbottstown for the last week. There was a bit of a handover going on with Noel Mooney, and today was expected to be his first full day in the job. Later this week, the accounts are due to be released, the 2017-2018, which will look very different from the ones that were initially seen. What was the interim CEO expected to do over the next 2 or 3 months? Would they have any real power, or is it just keeping the show on the road?
Well, that's up for debate. I think one of the points that was laid down as a positive about John Foley actually was that, because he'd worked with Athletics Ireland in particular, and also with Cycling Ireland on a more short-term basis, that he could actually be a very good link person in terms of relationships with government, and particularly with Sport Ireland, that he would have been, you know, a preferred option from Sport Ireland, and you know, that would have been the viewpoint. There's going to be some difficult decisions ahead. I'm not sure if within the next time frame there's going to be a clear plan on, I suppose, austerity measures or cutbacks or what.
Who makes that decision?
Well, this is the thing.
So if they come out this week and say our debt is €50 million, there's going to have to be cutbacks.
Yeah.
Who will make that decision?
Well, I suppose the board make that decision, but the board
hasn't been finalised.
Exactly. The board would, upon the advice of, you know, people, there should be figures within the association who are tasked with making those decisions, including the chief executive officer, or in this case the chief executive or the interim chief executive officer. That I'm not sure if you would have been given the brief to make these calls, but his input and experience would have been added. I mean, I asked around about, you know, John Foley and tried to make some inquiries, and I think there would have been a view that in his time, I think with Athletics Ireland, he would have been quite prudent in that regard. However, you are right, like short term, you know, how much say or influence would you really have had? But I think it's just to have that experienced administrator around the place. But I mean, I would have had reservations about him purely because of his links. But I think from the FAI's perspective, I can see why the board wanted someone with that kind of CV in the building while they might have to take these decisions. But yeah, the board isn't complete till the 4 independent directors are on it. So there's a domino effect here going round in circles, that you need something to happen for the next thing to happen. But just as they're about to do that, something goes wrong that prevents them from moving on to the next stage. So, yeah,
you cleared it right up, Dan.
Yeah, really, it's like a Nations League. It's like a Nations League explainer here, really, isn't it? But it's a bit like
Who's Kevin Kilban?
Yeah, I don't know.
Listeners.
I don't know. Yeah, the listeners are just like. Long story short, FAI is still in crisis.
Simple as that. So we'll come back to that on the football show after 9 o'clock. The Ballon d'Or, Dan, is being decided today, but there's an altogether more momentous title up for grabs in the world of sport. That's right, Dan. We're trying to decide the biggest, most memorable sporting moment of the last decade. We are pitting several iconic Irish sporting moments against each other over the next few weeks. It's running all the way up to Christmas when we will reveal the overall winner of the most memorable moment in Irish sport of the last decade. Voting is on Twitter and Instagram, @OffTheBall on both. It closes in just over an hour. We've shortened it down to 16 different moments, and we're running it off head-to-head World Cup style battle. Today it is Robbie Brady. No, it's not. It's Shane Long. You have one thing to do. It's Shane Long. Robbie Brady will come along later. Today it's Shane Long against Germany, against that classic 2010 Leinster final, Louth against me.
So I have a problem with this, right? So you're telling me that the only, and Ronan will back me up on this, that the only Louth related moment in your 16 moments of the last 10 years is that?
Yes.
What about our transcendently great soccer team?
Give me the moment. It's most memorable moment. It's not greatest achievement. If it was greatest achievement,
Robbie Benson's volley against Legia Warsaw.
Really, walk out into Grafton Street and ask them how many people remember it.
I'm just saying.
Exactly.
I'm just making the point.
Listen, if it was iconic moments, greatest moments, brilliant. It's most memorable moments.
I looked at the 16. I didn't remember some of them.
Which?
There was one or two in there.
You can't name them though, can you?
Was there something to do with Northampton or something? What was that?
Leinster coming from behind to beat Northampton. Again, Walk out.
Walk out to the... Okay, why you see you're making a Grafton Street decision. Walk on to Clonbrassil Street and the Dock and ask them how many people remember Leinster's comeback against Northampton.
Well, look, they'll all remember Louth losing the Leinster final to Meath.
You're just saying...
You can't include everything.
You're taking Grafton Street.
You can't include everything.
Get mentioned.
There's more to the world than the League of Ireland,
This wasn't the League of Ireland. This was an Irish team in European football. So, like, I had a problem with that discussion, to be honest.
Well, there's a shock.
Well, there
there's
you go.
A shock.
So, I mean, it's obviously going to be Shane Long on that one.
Again, Louth against Meath.
Yeah.
We've 2 Louth men here.
How have we been jilted twice by the same incident here? We got an awfully tough draw in the first round.
They're all tough draws because 16 was hard to whittle down to.
I don't know.
I went in quite heavy, insisting that Louth Meath 2011 should be in this.
2010. I was at the World Cup final at the time.
Yes,
and I do remember a lot of people in the press box, a couple of Bulgarian lads that were near me in the press box were perplexed as to why the Irish lads were all just watching, standing around this screen, assuming that something big had happened on World Cup final day, and it was not. We were watching an event from home.
As a snapshot of Dundalk/Loud Sport, on the same day, Dundalk were in Tala losing 4-0 to Shamrock Rovers.
So, Ronan's got the knowledge here.
So it was a bad day.
Yeah, a bad day all round. Which match were you at?
I was at the Loud game. And it was tough, Nathan, I'm not going to lie.
We did have a tweet in earlier saying that cars were burnt out in RD over this.
Were they? That mightn't have been related to that, though. It could have just been something else that happened that day.
You're from RD, by the way, aren't you? Just to clarify. That's not me saying that. Dad's from RD, so next time he's home over Christmas, take him up on that. He's massively regretting saying that now, aren't you?
No, I'm not at all. I'm not at all. I just don't think that should be on the 16.
If you look at the fortunes of...
You don't think that's one of the most memorable moments in Irish sport over the last decade? Come on, do me a favour.
I don't know. I just think it's your definition.
Of memorable.
The definition of memorable. But that is up for debate.
It is. But the debate's been had, so let's move on.
Yeah, no, you don't want me to query this 16 that you've decided in your panel. Your really Grafton Street orientated panel have made your call.
Would you have Shane Long or Robbie Brady higher?
That's difficult.
But surely Shane Long scoring against the world champions trumps Robbie Brady scoring against Italy's B team.
Does everyone... Yeah, but see, this is the definition of moment, and I'm actually coming back around to your side. Is it definition of moment or definition of achievement? Like, if it's definition of achievement, then the Dublin Rover should be in it.
As a moment,
you know what I mean? But
it's not.
But no, I'm just saying it should be. But if you're saying moment, by definition of moment, then the Brady one has to, because I think a lot of people remember where they were for Brady. I think the Long was a great moment, but I don't know, does everyone instantly go back to where they were for that Germany Long strike?
You know, where's it just missed?
Yeah. That made it all the more sweet.
Anyways, Robbie Brady is going to come up down the track.
Yeah, but
Dundalk, unfortunately, is not.
Yeah.
Anyways, you can still get your votes in at Off the Ball on Twitter or Facebook. It's open until 8:30. We will announce the winner a little bit later. We'll get back to this debate and we'll tell you about tomorrow's last 16 tie, which is 2 juggernauts. Anne-Marie looks totally disinterested in this right now.
What are they?
I'm going to tell you later on.
All right, okay, sorry.
Stick with us. A text in from Mick. I'm from Finglas and I remember every minute of Leinster against Northampton. You don't have to be from South Dublin to love rugby.
I didn't suggest that you had to be from South Dublin.
Oh, tasty draw in the FA Cup third round alert. Liverpool against Everton, who, if my memory serves me right...
They're playing during the week.
They're playing on Wednesday.
Will they be back from Qatar for that?
They will be back from Qatar. They're playing on Wednesday night, but they also met in the third round of the FA Cup
Yeah.
last year?
Van Dijk's debut, was it?
2 years ago. Third round 2 years ago. Yes, Virgil van Dijk scored on his debut.
Yeah. And didn't score again for a long time after that.
Manchester United against Wolves, also in the third round of the FA Cup. We'll bring you the full draw. Well, not the full draw. Obviously not the full draw, but like...
Full draw.
You know.
We want the whole draw.
Let's give Stevenage their...
Watford are playing Tranmere, guys. Reading against Blackpool and Preston up against Norwich. It's happening live right now. Manchester City against Port Vale. Middlesbrough against Tottenham.
I think you'll probably stop at the rest
Eastleigh
of
or Crewe against Barnsley.
Yeah.
Are there any non-league teams? Haven't heard any. Like, where's the fairy tale? We should have Kilban on, because obviously he is Mr. FA Cup. So he could tell us all about
the game over the
tales.
weekend, yeah.
So Millwall against Newport, Patrick Ammon's Newport got them to this round once again. Anyways, we are now literally going through the draw team by team. Anne-Marie, what else you got for us?
Dublin County Board Chairman Sean Shanley has denied that former manager Pat Gilroy will be given first refusal to succeed Jim Gavin. It was reported this morning that the 2011 All-Ireland football winning coach would be offered the role, but Dublin GAA have since denied that this is the case. Gavin obviously resigned from his post on Saturday afternoon after leading them to the historic 5 in a row. His decision to step aside came as a shock to the county board, but Shanley says he's pleased that Gavin didn't make the decision lightly.
No, we haven't spoken to anyone yet, and I don't know whether Pat's even interested or not, But we will be speaking to everyone that's interested. But no, there'll be no truth in that. We certainly haven't talked to anyone or even discussed it among ourselves. Tonight's management meeting, that's the first it'll be discussed.
And some of the candidates in the mix to replace Gavin are obviously Dessie Farrell, Mick Bowen, Paul Clark and Jason Sherlock, just some of the early names that have been suggested.
Yeah, Dessie Farrell certainly seems to be the hot favourite to get that job. We're going to talk to Barry Cahill and to Enda McGinley at 7:30 about what happens next for the Dubs, but also, of course, about the greatness of Jim Gavin. Are we allowed to have that conversation without talking about Stephen Kenny and all he's achieved, or can these be two separate things?
Was there a Dean Rock point against Mayo on that list, was it?
There was, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure that meant a lot to people on other streets around the country. It's a very, I'm not going to go into this, we just argue about that list. Like, it's a very panel-centric 16 sporting moment.
I feel your colleague should make an apology regarding his slur on someone from Clondalkin not having a clue about Leinster rugby history, says Enda from the north side of Dublin. Would it be worse if I'd asked, is Clondalkin on the north side?
Clondalkin's on the south side.
It's on the south side.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Where's Clondalkin?
It's out near...
It's sort of... it's Glen Whelan territory.
Near
It's Glen Whelan
Saggart,
territory.
isn't it?
It's
Where's
Glen Whelan
Saggart?
territory.
Out near
Near
Tala?
Tala, yeah.
Okay.
Direction, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Grand. I should
Red
know all
line
this,
brings
really.
you right
You
out.
probably should know more of this, yeah.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
I'll stop now before
But listen,
really
go on to
dig a
Grafton
hole.
Street and see what people think out there. That's all that matters. Let's go to Brown Thomas and see what the most memorable moments were from the year.
Wow.
Just saying.
You're saying that the Docker fans who, got the Brown Thomas?
No, I'm not saying that.
What are you saying? What are you saying?
You've styled your list at that. You said walk down Grafton Street. I'm just making the point.
Arsenal against Leeds in the third round of the FA Cup.
That's a throwback.
That is giant killing.
John
written
Lukic
all
just springs
over
to
it.
mind there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Emery.
George Graham.
Leicester City manager Brendan Rodgers says he has no desire whatsoever to leave the King Power Stadium. The Foxes obviously lie second in the Premier League after their victory over Everton yesterday. Former Arsenal boss Unai Emery obviously sacked last week, and that's led to speculation about Rodgers possibly replacing him. Rodgers, though, says that he's going nowhere.
I have a contract here till 2022. And thus far, and I know managers are losing their jobs, but the club haven't indicated to me that they're going to sack me. I think they're pretty happy with how we're working. And like I said, I'm very happy. So I have no need to look elsewhere. And I think logic would tell you. And I know that sometimes in your world it's not always logical. There's gossip and speculation. But why would I want to leave Leicester City at this moment in time? I'm working with a young group of players that's got so much potential, that want to improve and want to develop.
There's a soundbite that might be replayed over the coming years. Why would I want to leave Leicester City?
That's coming out there in the future. It's like Declan Rice's great statements about West Ham in the past and whatnot. You just know. I mean, I'm sure Celtic fans will really enjoy that. Like, I'm sure Brendan Rodgers at some point said, "Why would I leave Celtic?"
Well, Celtic fans usually take this quite well, this conversation.
But in all seriousness, if the offer comes through this week and Arsenal formalise it, he will go to Arsenal.
Oh, 100%.
Why though?
Why though? Because he's a commercial entity, Nathan. The man knows his commercial worth will increase by moving to London, getting all that exposure. And Leicester,
What?
Come on.
I think, Ronan, I agree. I think Arsenal is a genuine top six club. Rodgers probably never thought he would get back there, maybe, when he left Liverpool. And his stock is at the highest point that it could be now.
But Leicester can achieve more than Arsenal can achieve over the next 2 or 3 years.
You think?
Look at the quality of players that are in that Leicester team.
Yeah, but Harry Maguire left Leicester to go to Manchester United, and on paper he's leaving a far better squad to join an inferior squad. But there's more to it than that. This
is the moment Brendan stands up to be counted.
Can you not picture him walking out the Emirates tunnel with that scar?
100%. Just to let you know, we're heading west with the latest Off the Ball Roadshow in association with Heineken Rugby Club on Wednesday, the 11th of December. We'll be walking down Shop Street asking people for the most memorable moment.
That's great, yeah. The specific moment.
If we run into Johnny Ward, we may get
Dundalk. Was Galway 2017 on it as well, was it?
I don't know if it made the list. There was a lot of controversy.
It was just general. It wasn't a specific moment, right? It was just a general achievement.
Well, there was talk of Joe Canning's point against Tipperary.
I'm personally very annoyed that didn't make it.
It has to be a moment, though.
There was other people involved.
Dublin Ladies was mentioned. What moment?
Anyways,
I'm taking your standards here.
Dublin ladies didn't get into it, so there you go.
There was no moment.
Wednesday, the 11th of December, we're going to be at the Galmont Hotel. I wasn't planning on going, but just to get away from Dan, I'm now going. We're going to be there. Will Greenwood, Ireland's attack coach Mike Catt, Connacht's Andy Friend and Tiernan O'Halloran, and Galway legend Cyril Farrell. We're going to be announcing some more big names over the next few days, but you can get your tickets right now at offtheball.com/events. It's all with thanks to Heineken Rugby Club. Visit drinkaware.ie, and remember, this is an over-18s gig. Just before we finish up, Anne-Marie, Graham McDowell.
Yeah, Graham McDowell is to host the Dubai duty-free Irish Open for the next 2 years, and that, of course, obviously beginning at Mount Juliet Estate in May of next year. The 40-year-old succeeds Rory McIlroy and latterly Paul McGinley as tournament host of the event. His stint will begin at the Kilkenny venue, which hosts the Island of Ireland's National Open for the first time in 25 years. That's in May of 2020, and then the 2021 venue has not yet been confirmed.
Yeah, seems to be an expectation it'll be in Portstewart, so pretty much back home for
He'll have some.
Graham McDowell.
Do you think GMAC could be pally enough with some of the Americans to get a couple of them over?
You see, GMAC's now, he just turned 40.
He's going to move to the next generation. You'd wonder,
Those younger guys, I'm not sure if he'd have that connection.
I'm sure he's had some crack with them at some point, you know.
Cold beers.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I'm sure there'll be a couple he can rope in.
I felt like you were teeing that up for something.
No, I wasn't. I was waiting for you to come in with the
to be honest,
GMAC impression.
To be honest, Dan, when you were right 5 minutes late, I thought you'd offer a little bit more.
Yeah.
But really, you've brought the news round down.
I'm sorry, yeah.
You'll be back after 9 for the football show, so still time to redeem yourself.
I thought you might redeem yourself in the sporting moments discussion.
Anyways, we're going to talk more about that.
Oh,
we're
great.
going to talk more about that from the lines. The text lines close at 8:30, so we'll see whether it is Shane Long or Meath against Louth. Ronan, thank you.
Thanks,
Anne-Marie, thank you. Monday Night Rugby coming up after 8 o'clock, but up next, we're talking about Jim Gavin.